So we're real excited about that. We think it's time that we turn over the ropes to some young people. I'd like to introduce Jim King, and Spencer Thomas, who were appointed last week as your new land use administrator, town administrator, and your town clerk.
All right.
So they are here
Congratulations.
tonight. Yeah, thank you. We're extremely excited. Of course, Jim starts March the 1st, April the 1st, or about. The council has given us the leeway, Teresa and I and the mayor, leeway to sort of massage these 2 times and experience it, whatever, to make it as efficient and as smooth as we can. So we're real excited. You will introduce yourself to him when you have a chance. And Spencer, you already know, we're really excited to have some younger people in the audience. I mean, in the office, I'm sorry. In the audience too sometimes.
Jim, why don't you give us a 30-second, 15-second rundown background?
All right.
Especially what you've been doing the last 10 years. You don't have to go back anymore.
So yeah, I've been land use planning for 28 years. Just retired from the county, and luckily Ed found out about it, and he's just like, "Would you be looking at doing a part-time gig?" And I was like, "Sure would." So
From Union County?
mm-hmm.
Okay.
So I know all the heavy hitters with the county, so I know where to go to get the answers for stuff. I worked for the county for 11 years, and that's pretty much it right there in a nutshell.
Very good. Thank you.
Congratulations.
I did tell him that he would look like me in 25 years. He wasn't too thrilled with that. But we're really excited to have him.
Ed, you and Teresa, wish y'all the best. Enjoy. Come and see us every now and then.
Oh,
Bring
yeah.
some food.
Yeah.
We do have a retirement party scheduled for them in June, so
Okay.
you'll get that information.
All right.
Oh, good.
The gift should be under 300,000.
Well, I'm going on the trip with you.
Make the shit, you can make it over 300,000.
We'll all go to jail together.
Yes. Exactly right. Okay, now you turn it over to Mr. Harvey.
Okay. Michael, it's off. The show is yours.
Well, I promise not to keep you long, but I do have several decision points that you need to give me some feedback on. So you have your final version of Article 4, which is the districts. You all have already given me taciturn approval for the table format. And part of the reason for that is because bluntly, right now, a lot of your land use standards, setbacks, minimal lot size, et cetera, definitions of districts are spread out over 3 different chapters. You all should not have to be going to 3 different chapters to find this information. So the one example, you have to forgive me, I can see the board with my new bionic eyes. I just can't read the computer screen without the glasses. So I'm going to be doing this a lot. So your definition, your purpose section, all your setbacks, and all your development criteria now in one central section. That'll be in Article 4. We're not changing anything as it relates to the development criteria of your code. It's just a matter of relocating it. The first decision point that I have for you all tonight, as you know from reading, is we gave you 2 options on a table of permitted uses. The first option, which is the one that I'm preferential to, which doesn't mean squat in the grand scheme of things, it's just what I like. And your staff has indicated their comfort with groups your land uses by category. So we have an agricultural land use category. And any land use dealing with agricultural activity is all grouped in that one section. What this also requires us to do in Article 5 of your code, and we went to great pains to do this. I'm just going to pull up the ag. There we go. We provide a definition of what that land use category is. We provide example uses, and we provide exceptions. What are the exceptions? It's to inform the reader if there's an activity that he or she may be looking at that doesn't fit into this particular category. So the one example is commercial feedlots are actually classified under the heavy industrial land use category. Animal waste processing, not associated with a bona fide farm consistent with state law, is actually processed as a waste management land use. So your exceptions tell the reader where they go to figure out what they can and can't do, so they can then understand what section of the table permitted use they're going to. One of the reasons we recommend you do this is we think it takes some of the guesswork out of it for your staff. We think it provides them some concrete direction on what is considered in that category, what isn't. Another example I'll give you is we've created a recreation land use category. And you all already know what's in that recreation land use category. It's anything associated with recreational land uses. And forgive me as I get there. Right here. How many people here know what an escape room is?
Heard of it.
Okay. They're big now, and it's actually a fun activity. So for those that don't know, an escape room is where you as a customer go to a place of business and you pay to have an hour's worth of it's basically Clue in real life. You are trying to solve a puzzle. You're walking through a scenario, and it's time. And if you succeed, you solve the puzzle, you win. If you don't succeed, well, then you will hang your head in shame and leave the room. But it actually is a great fun activity. But most ordinances never defined what an escape room was. And there was this whole big clamor about 10, 15 years ago as they got popular in North Carolina. Well, what is it? Well, if you define what a land use category is, give examples, then it's easier for your staff to say, well, what you're describing to me fits into this. It's a recreational activity. It's a game. We're going to classify it as a recreational land use. You don't have to worry about amending the code. We actually have the ability under the code to make this determination. We are comparing like with like land uses. Everybody understand the example? So that's option one. Option two, as we sent to you all, or sent to staff, is effectively your current table of permitted uses on steroids, where we include a slew of other land uses. It gets lengthy, which is not a deterrent. But remember, if you're going to make an argument that a land use activity is prohibited in your jurisdiction, you have to take the table of permitted uses and make sure that the reader knows that that land use is not allowed. So let's say you don't want to allow escape rooms in your community. You would list escape room and then not have it checked anywhere in your ordinance. Can't go anywhere. That's how you determine and define that a land use is prohibited. So there's no wrong answer, there's no right answer. It's preference. And just because I have a preference doesn't mean you should have that same preference. Both will work. From your all standpoint, what I'm looking for is a little bit of guidance and direction. When we look at this option one layout that links everything based on a defined land use category, we have lists of uses. Assembly land use, banquet hall, club or lodge, community center, museum, meeting facility, place of worship, which is a church, theater, indoor, outdoor. Are you comfortable grouping everything by the land use category construct here, where there's a central definition, there's example uses for the staff to use, and there are exceptions to explain to the reader what is and is not permitted? Or do you all not have a preference? You could care less as long as it makes sense and it's understandable to the layperson.
One of my thoughts is that everybody's used to looking at the table like you have up on the board right now.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are they going to become more confused that we change to the other option?
I don't think so. I think it's the other option just helps to further define what the land uses are. I mean, you're still getting effectively the same code of ordinances. What I'm not doing is giving you a table of permitted uses that has to list, let's say, 1,000 land uses. Instead, I've got a group to classify to make it a lot easier for everyone to understand what is and is not permitted. At least that's my view.
So we would still have to change any of the land uses at request, right, to meet any of these type conditions, because I don't think right now we have anything that would, right?
You have obviously some conditions in your code, and depending on which direction you send me in, I'm going to be finishing Article 5, and I'm going to talk about what I'd like you to look at with Article 5 as you're moving forward, to make sure that I'm capturing all of the regulatory limits and opportunities in your updated code. So it doesn't matter what format of the table of permitted uses we use. Article 5, though, is going to contain all the standards regulating land use instead of it being, again, two different articles.
Just a personal preference, right, Mike?
Yeah.
What you,
And I think this option gives the town more flexibility, but again, just because I have a preference doesn't mean you all are bound to it. Your staff has a preference, doesn't mean you're bound to it. You're making your recommendation of what you think is going to be easier. And if you all don't have an opinion right this second, that's not a problem. But we obviously will at some point need you to give me a little bit of direction so that I can finish moving some items forward. And if you don't feel strongly about it, we can continue to look at both options as we're finalizing the update to Article 5.
And you have done this in other counties, and
I've done this in other counties and municipalities, yes, sir.
about Union County. Anybody in Union County?
No, Union County effectively follows the same table of permitted use model that you use. Correct.
So everybody else in Union County's got our model.
Everybody else in Union County right now has the laundry list of land uses. I can tell you, we've been hired by Unionville to redo their ordinance, and you shouldn't base your decision on what another community is going to do. It's your preference, okay? Unionville has asked me to use this format you see on the screen now.
So you're under contract with Unionville
Yes, sir.
to do this.
Yes, sir. I'm doing the same thing for you in Unionville.
But Union County is still
Union
not
County,
even moving forward with what we're doing now. Is it?
well, it's that they're obviously, they're under no obligation to change their code if they don't want to, obviously. So if you change your code, it only is applicable in Fairview. It's not going to impact Union County. My hope is that whatever standard the county or any other local municipality uses, it's just effective for their staff and effective for the resident that has to read the code. That's really all that matters. There's thousands of ways to do this. I'm giving you two organizational examples that each will work. It's just, do you have a preference? And if you don't have a preference, that's not a bad thing. We're just going to have to keep both models until we get a little more comfort level from everybody here at the.
Is Unionville council approved? Are you finished with Unionville?
No, just started. We started after you did. So we started with you 2 months later. We got Unionville's contract. So they're still reviewing Articles 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm sorry.
I would like to suggest that we go ahead and make that decision or have some kind of consensus that we use that plan there in both Jim and I's minds. That makes it easier for us to administer and a whole lot easier for the public to understand.
it's basically the same thing, just in different format.
Yeah,
So there's no actual changes. It's just to the format. There's no.
Right.
actual
I'm not
changes.
changing land uses.
Well, we don't have, I mean, right now, we don't have an example as an escape room, so I guess that would be a little bit. of
Well, that's just,
The
yeah,
example, right? I mean,
That's a use. That's a use.
that's a land
But
use.
this-
but we already have that now?
I don't
No, I'm
think you have it
saying-
in your jurisdiction, but that would be an allowable land use as a recreation land use. And Jim, I'm sorry I interrupted.
No problem. The one thing that this format that he's got pulled up right now does for staff is, and for you guys, is it'll eliminate the need for amendments because we left something out of the table of permitted uses. This is a little bit more subjective, but we're not gonna have it, it's not listed in there. We're gonna get the next closest land use that is allowed in there, and we're gonna tie it to that and move forward.
And I think the general public has trouble reading this chart, for a better word.
You're gonna probably have trouble reading any chart like this.
Correct. That was about
Unless
to
they're
say that.
associated with it. You know, it's just foreign. It's just foreign to them. It's just foreign to them. But we think this is I could explain this to a customer and they would understand. Easier than I think we have now. Our definitions are in another place and they're hard to read and and some of them are outdated and the
I would think so.
chart of uses we have now, I don't think there's any scientific stamp of you did a good job on it. I think it's adequate. It is just because we don't have enough activity. This one does have the activity we need if we have it.
So the definitions are going to be in Article 5 with your table of permitted uses. So people aren't, again, they're not having to go to multiple articles to find this information out. The reason I like this format, I know you've heard me, and I know you've heard your two staff people here. The reason I like this format is it does allow for staff to be more proactive in working with the residents. If I meet the definition of a rec land use with an activity, if it meets these criteria, you can have it classified as a recreational land use. You don't have to wait 3 months to amend your code.
Well, I think we kind of like sometimes to review things, so I guess my only concern is that we're given, I mean, I don't know, you guys can speak, I think that we always like to talk things over before we allow anything different, but I don't know if you guys speak here. That would be my only concern, is that we don't have a chance to meet as a group and talk through something that would be different than what's already in our community.
The only caveat I'm going to remind you all of is that your current ordinance does allow your staff, if there's a use not listed, to make a determination that that use falls or is similar to another existing use, so it wouldn't come before you anyway. And
I think we always do though.
I understand, but this format, at least my hope is it gives the staff enough direction that they're making an informed decision, and it gives them the tools that they can be successful.
Here again, we don't have enough activity to really show you examples of that, but I think in the future year we will have. There are some subjective uses. I have made a decision on interpreting the ordinance, but that's not many of them.
I just wonder if like laying it out like that would promote more activity, I guess. You guys have to thought on that.
I recognize that critique and concern, and I understand it. I don't think it's going to necessarily represent any greater activity. I think Fairview is going to be consistent. I think what is going to increase development activity in your community is when and if you ever get access to public water sewer. And I think that's when, if you have a proper ordinance put in place and a good comprehensive land use plan, then the impact's going to be negated.
I think the somewhat what she's saying though is our public and this public group likes the control factor.
Yes.
They want to know everything about everything.
Yes,
No
that's
offense.
correct.
Yeah.
But and I feel
Some
like
of
we
you
don't
do.
have any control over when water and sewer does come here. That is out of our control. But what is in our control is what we put on here and lay out there without us having to come and meet as a group and say yes or no. Does that make sense to anybody else? Oh,
Yeah.
quiet.
Yeah.
No. I'm thinking, when do we actually come and meet and talk about something? That's generally when we have a special use permit or we selling a piece of property. And then if you want to do a change of use, then if it's permitted, like with old words, then this doesn't really come to us. But if it is not permitted, then it's already coming to us.
Mhm.
And I think that still stays the same.
I think it does.
So I think you're still going to
That's
have
right.
the same oversight that you have currently. Maybe no more. I don't know if you want any more, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, I'm not increasing the oversight. I'm not eliminating it, but I'm not increasing the oversight.
And remember, it's oversight recommended. It's not decision making. So it's review, and we want you to review it, but you're not the sole group that makes the decision on it.
No, but
Does that make more sense to you, Chrissy?
yeah, I mean, I don't, not that it's necessarily a control factor, but if you lay out examples that say specific things that we don't currently have, I feel like that is welcoming or encouraging. I don't know, you know what I'm saying, you know what I mean?
Only if they're listed as being permitted in a specific district.
Right.
We're still going to encourage you to have land uses listed in this ordinance and not indicate that they're permitted in any district, but you have made the determination this activity is not permitted in Fairview, and that's the only way under the current statutory framework that you can ban, for lack of a better way, political land use. So-
What was the one with, was it a food truck or something like that that we didn't have in there, you know what I mean? The specific example of it was not laid out.
Right,
And
and I
you
think
know
you're
what
correct, it was a food truck.
It was a food truck, and so then, because that wasn't laid out in that example, then we could read and we could go through that. Do you remember that?
Mhm.
Wasn't it a food truck? I
It was
think
a food truck, and it was.
And y'all did give suggestions, and I think we decided that, correct me if I'm wrong, we create a policy for that rather than a zoning district.
Anyway, that was, I'm just throwing.
I think Christie's right about our, and Ed too, as far as our folks are gonna want it written out. I do think that.
Well, the definitions in this way are very clear.
And I think that's the real key, is
Yeah.
being clear and concise,
Yep.
that most folks can understand.
And I think we're also giving you examples as to what's not included and what's not permitted. So I
That's right.
think
That's
this
the
this
key.
revision goes a little bit beyond what you currently have to actually be more descriptive, so that there is more control for Fairview to say, this is not going to work, this would.
And just because we get sewer and water don't mean that we gotta automatically approve high density
Oh,
development.
no, but that's my statement to you is that when water sewer does come, that's when I think you will start seeing development growth and development pressure. I think it's going to take that to actually get to that stage.
I think you're right there.
So is there a comfort level right now moving forward with option one with the definitions, at least to continue to try to finalize Article 5, or? Because the next one's going to be a doozy.
Yeah, I do have a comfort level, and one of the things that I'll go ahead and say now, I'd like to increase the requirements for a high-density development.
Mhm.
You know, such as, you know, we have, right now, we currently have planting in front of the lot itself, next to the road, but also to have plants in the front yard.
Yeah, street trees.
Yeah, street trees, requiring sidewalks, and then start requiring lights when you have a density of greater than, say, 500 residents.
Okay.
Something to that nature, just to give it a step up for the higher density.
That's not a problem.
How long do you think it would take for us to get a 500
I know that.
foot subdivision?
If you get the water
With
and
water
sewer, it's
sewer,
like.
you would,
You get water and sewer.
Yeah, right, no, that's true.
We
So-
should have plenty of time to develop that.
Well, yeah, but I just sort of start laying the groundwork now.
Right.
If I
What-
get too far ahead of you, then you'll find something else.
What Ed, Jim, and I were talking about before the meeting, when we get to your subdivision code, you're gonna have what we call development types. And those development types address density, intensity, and have separate standards. So, let's say a 10-lot subdivision that's 5 acres is gonna have this standard, whereas a 100-lot division is gonna have this standard. And it's all meant to address impacts, it's all meant to address, there is a difference between 5-acre lot, and let's say a 1-acre lot, 100 lots. So you can have the different development criteria, and you're gonna have those with your development types moving forward.
I think we need to go 1 to 5 acres and no more than an acre, and that ought to be written in stone, so.
I respect that more than you know. I just want to make sure that I give you all the tools so that nobody can claim that you are violent. Well, what I think the state law is going to be changed to say, but we are still making sure that the majority of your community is going to be a low density project, or excuse me, encourage low density development. And the only areas that we're going to even consider for medium or higher density is those areas where water sewer have been extended. Since you don't have water sewer yet, you don't have to worry about it. But that, I mean, Fred, I hear you, and I'm not, you don't have a bad point at all. I'm just gonna make sure that nobody can claim Fairview isn't compliant with state rules. I know that's somewhat of a bitter pill to swallow, and I recognize that. I'm not trying to force it down your throat, and I appreciate you listening to me.
Oh, yeah.
The
The community is, the survey and everybody said that's what our community wants.
all right,
Okay, so let's go back to the primary objective here. Does anybody else feel uncomfortable between options 1 or 2, or have any questions? So we can give Michael some direction.
and again, if you think of a question after the meeting, you just email it to Ed, and we address the question. So it's not like you have to, if you think of something later tonight or tomorrow, you can always ask the question. Okay?
Yay, nay? Bill says, sir, on
Fence.
you want to think about it?
What I'm hearing is if I stick with option 1 for now, you're okay with it, but you reserve the right to tell me to go back to option 2. Is that fair?
I think that's fair.
Okay. Now, special uses. I know you all love special uses. I know that you can't wait to have a special use come before you. I've been asked by your staff what my opinion is on eliminating special uses in your jurisdiction. Not have it. There's no statutory requirement that you have a special use. So let me remind you what the special use is, not to insult anybody's intelligence, but just let's make sure we're all on the same page. This ordinance, and here's the prime example here, this ordinance is going to have uses identified as being prohibited. That's where you don't see any kind of check mark whatsoever. If it's blank, it's not permitted. P, what does that mean?
Permitted?
Means it's permitted. It means all you have to do is come to Ed or Jim and apply for a zoning permit and submit any and all documentation, and guess what?
It's approved.
Got your permit, staff approval. The triangle or delta means that you have to give us a site plan demonstrating compliance with specific development criteria, whether it be land use buffers, whether it be additional setbacks, whatever. You have some of that already in your code. We're just memorializing it that way. S stands obviously for special use permit. Now, what is a special use permit? That's a land use where your elected officials have determined the use is viable, the use is legal, but there's opportunity for there to be offsite impacts. And as a result of those potential offsite impacts, the board has determined there needs to be a heightened level of review, meaning applicants have the burden of proof with the submittal of competent material evidence and providing sworn testimony they meet all the applicable standards of your code. So if your code, for the Clover Lodge example in the R1 district, says you have to be 50 feet from all property lines. You have to have a 25-foot buffer. I'll just give you examples. Your hours of operation can't be after 10 o'clock at night. You can have parking lot lights, but the light can't exceed 20 foot in height, and you have to show us that you don't exceed a certain foot candle limit at your property line. The applicant has an obligation to submit a professional site plan showing I meet all these standards. Because the decision to approve or deny is based on whether or not there's that evidence proving I meet those standards. Remember, with special use permits, you also have to provide documentation, again, competent material evidence and or sworn testimony. You meet all the other general standards required for special use. It won't impact property value, adjacent property value. It's in harmony with the area. It's consistent with the comp plan. It promotes the public health, safety, and general welfare. And that's a grotesque simplification of those standards, but you get the gist. If they prove, being the applicant, they meet the ordinance, you have to issue the permit. You don't have the ability to deny. That's state law, and that's court decisions. If I want to argue the use doesn't meet this code, doesn't meet the standard, I also have to have competent material evidence showing it doesn't. No, see, I have proof that this light they're proposing to use won't meet your foot candle limit. I don't think that this buffer, and here's why I don't think this buffer, will meet the 25-foot requirement for your ordinance. I have an expert here to testify that this land use will negatively impact my property value. And here's the documentation, here's the evidence. The town then has to determine who's right and who's wrong based on what's been testified to. But I just can't stand up here during a special use permit proceeding and say, I just don't want it. I don't like it. You shouldn't approve this. That's not evidence. That's unfortunate.
That's not to say that doesn't happen.
It happens all the time. But that's, unfortunately, that doesn't rise to the level of evidentiary, the evidentiary basis for a decision to be made to deny it.
Now, you said staff doesn't want that, town council.
The staff has asked me point blank, how would I feel if we eliminated all special use permits and made everything either permitted, prohibited in a given district, or make sure that the standards are so clear that you're addressing offsite impacts. There's no statutory requirement you have to have an SUP process. State law doesn't mandate that. It only says that if you choose to designate a land use as having to go through the SUP process, the special use permit process, this is how you have to review it. You have to base it on sworn testimony. You have to base it on competent material evidence. You have to determine whether or not someone who wants to testify against it has standing to do so. Those are statutory requirements that you have to ensure as the community, because the applicant has full right to address anyone that speaks for or against his project or her project. And those that want to challenge it have to be held to the same standard as applicants with respect to providing evidence showing the use doesn't comply. So the question becomes, if the quasi-judicial hearing process, the evidentiary hearing proceeding, is cumbersome, which for a lot of communities it is. It's not a failing, it's a pain in the butt. Let's be honest about it, it is. The question is, do we eliminate the special use permit process, eliminate land uses, and just change them to only permitted if you meet these XYZ criteria? That's the next decision point.
Jim, what's your opinion?
Well, with the special use permit process, there is case law that says if it's allowed with a special use permit, it's presumed to be an allowed use. So it doesn't, I'm more of a fan of the legislative process. So what might be allowed today in R40 with a special use permit, maybe we say that's allowed in R8. So they have to go through a rezoning process in order to do that, and then that creates a legislative process, which gives you ground that, hey, if you have people there speaking in opposition about it, you can turn it down. The other good thing that you got going in your favor is your land use plan. Your land use plan calls for 97% of the town limits as being rural, low density. You've got a good teeth there, and you got good tools to work with, and you can always refer to that land use plan and say, hey, this is not a good idea, this does not comply with the land use plan, we're going to turn it down because of that. Or you can say, this is a great idea, we're going to approve you, and we're going to amend our land use plan. It gives you more flexibility in my mind.
To not have.
To require them to go through a legislative process instead of a quasi-judicial process. Now, you're not eliminating the Board of Adjustment because you still got to do variances and you still have appeals, which have to get through the quasi-judicial process. You're just eliminating one of the aspects that you would normally hear, and that'd be special use permit.
That's what we do now. We do the quasi-judicial thing. And I think, to me, the decision makers don't really understand that that's a quasi-judicial, or looks like a court hearing that's very sophisticated. And they don't understand it. They don't think they can, really, they don't see it before that meeting, really. Judicial.
And remember, the special use permit process, because it's a quasi-judicial process, there cannot be ex parte communication, meaning the decision maker cannot talk with the members of the general public about it.
Or if he does, he's got to disclose it and be able to say it's not the biases.
So it's very complicated.
We did that before, right? We had it
Yes, we've done it where we've had the community come in and basically said, I don't want it. That's all, that's the only evidence they had, which was not valid, as Mike was talking about.
Yep.
So, and so, you know, they were upset, they're mad because we basically followed what's laid out that should be done.
You follow state laws, you should, yes.
Yes, and we're the bad guys. So by going by the legislative process, it gives them a voice that they didn't have. If they don't understand what it takes to provide proper evidence. They don't understand they need to get an architect, an engineer, you know, somebody like that, or a transportation engineer to really talk about this.
Well, to point out something else also, especially with the quasi judicial process, the way the statutes are laid out, you have to notify the adjacent property owners no sooner than 10 days, no later than 25 days out. So you have a 15-day window of when you're notifying those adjacent property owners. They don't have time to go out and get an appraiser to do an appraisal on their property or an appraisal on the proposed use to say that it's going to damage their property values.
Or hire an engineer.
Yeah, they're at a huge disadvantage.
Yeah. And
Now-
I feel like with that one that we dealt with, remember we went and looked at the area and the requirements that were supposed to be at that time. They were supposed to have a tree buffer and all those things, and none of that happened. But then they were like, you know, oh, the property next to it was industrial, so this one should just be industrial too, even though, you know what I'm talking about? You remember we went out and looked at the road? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know the one you're talking
And
about.
so it was sort of like, well, this person's doing it and they're already doing it, so we're right beside that. And then, but that was the people that you're talking about, I think, that came out and did that, but.
Yeah.
And also,
You remember?
the example I use a lot is if somebody's going through the legislative process, they come to you, you're an advisory board, you make a recommendation to town council. When town council holds that public hearing and they vote on that, they can look at the applicant and say, yeah, we're going to use them, don't like them. You're done. And there's not a thing that they can do.
That's the obvious.
Which actually and truly eliminates some of our liability, so to speak, of being sued in the future.
There's a caveat I'll throw out at the appropriate time, but I'm not going to dispute what Jim is saying at all. So, do you all, first of all, I'll ask the question this way. Your staff has asked me to begin the process of eliminating special uses and just ensuring that there's appropriate standards in the code. Are you comfortable with that? Do you, or are you just so in love with special use permits in the process that I'm seeing the head shake, I get it, that's fine.
I'll tell you, I've never seen an elected official that likes it or understands it. All of it. Our mayor gets so confused, he just doesn't, it's just foreign.
Well, it's a lot.
It's foreign.
So,
Would you first to sort of take a vote for this month?
no, I think, I saw everybody effectively shake their head, no, that you're not interested in preserving the SUP process because you think it's annoying, but I'm not gonna ask you all to formally vote, but I think
But we don't have to formally vote on right now, everything. that
you're gonna get the ordinance. and you're gonna be-
Eventually,
yeah.
right, but not tonight.
Now,
Gotcha.
couple things that I am gonna just remind everybody here, and I'm sorry to be Debbie Downer, but I'm gonna be Debbie Downer for a minute. Remember that you have certain land use activities allowed in certain districts that right now are only approvable with an SUP. And let's say airports is the example, which I have up there as one of them. And you know, bluntly, maybe somebody hasn't wanted to come to you all to go through the SUP process to do an airport. I have to preserve a light industrial zone parcel of property's legal ability to develop that land use. Why? Because it's in your current code. And because state law says I don't have the ability to downzone property, which would mean eliminating allowable land uses that already exist, I'm going to have to make sure that's there. And I'm going to have to make sure the standards are clear as best as I can. I'm not telling you that to get you to change your mind, but I am telling you that so that when you see the revised Article 5, you'll understand why some standards get voluminous.
So if somebody wants to come in and build an airport, okay, it's not permitted by use.
Well, it is permitted. It's listed as a permitted use, subject to the issuance of that special use permit.
Okay, right, but.
It's still going to be listed as an allowed use. It's just now, instead of going through the quasi-judicial proceeding, it's going to be staff review of the site plan.
Okay, as long as we do have some kind of.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah,
But remember, that puts the onus on the professional, but here's the double-edged sword. The double-edged sword is the people that don't like the SUP process and the general public, because they're gonna sit there and say, well, we should have been allowed to come and argue against it. Going back to Jim's point, well, you would have had to have experts testify how it doesn't meet the code. So you would have had to spend money to do that. So it's a double-edged sword. Now, staff issues a permit for an airport, it's subject to appeal to the Board of Adjustment. All staff decisions are subject to appeal. But they would have to then show how staff erred in approving that permit. And if it meets all the standards of the code, then if they didn't err. And again, I'm not telling you that to change your mind, I'm just making sure everybody practically understands what it means.
I mean, how many have we had? How many have we had in the last 3 years?
I mean,
The special.
special use permit,
Yeah. Maybe
probably,
one,
no, two.
Two in the last, what, 3 years, 4 years?
Yeah.
Not many. I mean, so it is a pain, but at the same time, it's not like it's a lot.
Right.
But we want to, it sounds like to me, and I'm just making sure I understand what you're saying. So since there is already an airport that is here, that's going to have to be put on there. So if somebody says, I want to come out and build another airport, since that is already there, basically, you could say, I don't want that, but at the same time, it's on there and says you can do that. Am I understanding that?
You are understanding it correct.
Okay, so basically, we can't say no to that, so we lose that ability to say, so then you could just make.
So basically what happens
Is
is,
that mom?
if they meet the minimum standards of the ordinance,
Mhm.
you can't say no.
Right.
You can impose reasonable conditions to mitigate adverse impacts. That's one ability you do have over staff review. Staff, on the other hand, if it meets the minimum standards of the ordinance, we have to approve it.
Staff's in the same position you are, it's just a different theater. Now,
Yeah,
let's give you a practical example under your current ordinance. So your highway commercial district, an ambulance service, an amphitheater, an amusement facility, fun park are all permitted with the issuance of the special use permit. Now, I will tell you something you probably already know, and it's not meant to be insulting, it's meant to be honest. When you look at the standards your ordinance has in terms of meeting the SUP requirement, there's no way in God's green earth those 3 uses should be special use permits. There's no applicable measurable standard in your current code. So I think on one level, you're setting yourselves up to fail by accident. You've said you want these land uses in this one district to go through the SUP process, but there's realistically no standard for the applicant to have to demonstrate compliance with, other than it says, it has to be a 50-foot setback, let's say, for all structures. Well, that's not a big deal. There's no teeth with a lot of your standards when it comes to the SUP. And SUPs, quite bluntly, are meant to be regulated to a point where, no, we're guaranteeing there's not going to be any offsite secondary negative impacts. You don't do that now. Some of these land uses are better off as permitted. Why? Because I can meet the same standard. It's just staff telling you it meets the code versus you all having to go through a quasi-judicial proceeding. And then you don't have to worry about residents showing up saying, I just don't want it. Doesn't matter.
And something else that can be added to the code as well is taking the special use permit requirement out of there. You have your general standards. You got your landscaping standards, you got your parking standards, your lighting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then you can come in and be use specific with supplemental standards to those specific uses that are in addition to what's already, required by the code.
So let me give you an example from the current code of how I have suggested this all be looked at from just a regular permitted standpoint. So banquet hall, meeting facility, retreat center, conference center, general standards All structures have to observe a 50-foot setback. All activities take place indoors. And Union County or the state have to issue the septic permit. That's now the standard. The applicant has to meet those standards. Staff would be the one looking at this. It's not going to go through an SUP process. So that's the example, the practical example of use standards. And the way we've restructured your code is that everything is now consolidated in one central section as it relates to land use in Article 5, instead of being spread through 2 or 3 different chapters. So I'm comfortable that I had consensus to say, we don't have a problem if you get rid of the special use, but obviously we want to see the standards, which you haven't seen yet. And that's fine, because the decision was just made tonight. So we'll work on that. Here's another example of general standards. So theater, structures have to meet certain setbacks. Type A land use buffer has to be around the perimeter of the property. In the HC, we said that all activities have to be indoors. And in the general commercial, outdoor, you have to meet XYZ standard. That's staff verifying compliance, and that's with the site plan. Everybody understand? Okay. So that's where we're headed with that. Did anybody have any questions or comments you needed me to address or concerns? I know you're still reviewing, and now I'm going to tell you to stop so I can change some of this up by eliminating the special use permit, so you're actually looking at what I would call the final draft, because I don't want you to get fixated on something and I'm changing it anyway. Okay. That's not fair to you all, and it's a waste of your time. I'm not going to waste your
General
time.
questions.
Yeah.
We're talking about airports. What about drones? You know,
Drones, bluntly, is an independent activity that you as a property owner, if you want to fly a
they're like
drone,
delivery, like Walmart delivering.
that's not going to be a land use regulatory issue.
That would be FCC, right?
That's going to be the FCC and state.
So
of North Carolina.
where they wanted to.
If you're talking about a warehouse, we would classify that as a warehouse. If they use drones to deliver the product, that's just part of the warehouse operation. You're not going to be regulating the drone activity.
Industrial.
Right, you're regulating the warehousing activity.
All right. What about a data center? That's a big thing now.
Well, data center right now is not permitted in your code. It's listed, but it's not permitted.
I mean, they won't want one.
Well, they would have to propose standards in your ordinance, because right now I've got it listed, but it's not shown as permitted anywhere, so that means it's prohibited. Now, I will tell you, here's what other communities are doing, and I don't want you to get lost in the fog of this, because I'm going to be blunt with you. I get lost in the fog of this, and I deal with this daily, okay? So on one end of the spectrum, I actually have a client here that says, you know, we love data centers. All we care about is a 100-foot perimeter buffer. That's all we want. Okay, that's your code, and that's how it is. They haven't had any. Why? Because there's no infrastructure where they've rezoned the property to allow for the data center, and the data center is not going to go there without the infrastructure. So we go to the other end of the spectrum, and I'm not picking on anybody. Edgecombe County. I was not involved with this ordinance. I'm not saying it's a bad ordinance. I have a practical problem with it. They have very arduous standards, and I like the arduous standards because what the standards are designed to do, remember what I first told you all when I first met you. What is land use? What is zoning? It's the government's responsibility and opportunity to ensure that Chrissy's land use does not impact Doug's land use. That your reasonable use of property doesn't invalidate your reasonable use of property. A data center is a perfectly legal development. Your standards, or the standards by any community, should just be designed to offset impacts. What Edgecombe has done, and again, this is not a value judgment, they obviously are very concerned about utility impacts. So as part of the permit process, the developer has to submit documentation proving there's existing capacity, water, power, gas, whatever they're going to use to support the project and not have a negative impact on existing customers. Here's my rub with it. They require the applicant to come back annually and recertify they're not creating negative impacts to existing customers. I don't think that's legal. I'm sure their attorney would say otherwise and call me an idiot. That's okay. He and I don't have to agree. As long as he's comfortable or she's comfortable enforcing, it doesn't matter what my opinion is. But if you issue a zoning permit authorizing a land use, you can't make that land use continually come back through a process to get recertified to continue operation. It either meets the code or it doesn't. Now, I'm all for requiring a data center in the example we're now talking about to provide documentation will not have a negative impact on existing utility infrastructure. It will not stop existing utility infrastructure from supporting not only the data center, but surrounding land uses. And that it will not create a burden. But that's not to say 5 years from now, you have 3 other developments that are taxing the electrical network in that area, or the gas network in that area, or the water system, where the cumulative impact of all land uses is the culprit, not this one.
Yeah.
That's my problem. So right now, Mr. Thomas, to give you a direct answer to your question, we list the data center, but it's nowhere permitted. We're just saying, can't go, but we listed it. Why? Because that's the one land use activity I know most communities are not concerned with. And a community is better off if they have a use they don't want, listing it in their table specifically. Don't leave it up to an interpretive decision. Listing it and then not checking a box. And that's what we're going to do with some of your activities. Manufactured home parks is another example of how we're going to handle that. It's just not checked. Did I answer your questions? Any other questions, comments, concerns, observations, gripes? Wish list you want me to think about?
Well, some time restraints, don't get started in some of
All right, so here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna
For
take,
who? You got until March the 1st.
Well, sure.
I'm gonna take your notes. I'm gonna take what Jim and Ed and I have talked about this evening. I'm gonna update this packet. We are gonna make this available to you electronically. So we're gonna try Dropbox. So Ed's gonna compile all your emails and I'm gonna try to set up a Dropbox so that it's gonna be a little easier for you to review. But at least that's my hope. I have so many problems with Dropboxes from time to time, and that's just, maybe it's me.
Yeah, no, it's Dropbox.
Maybe it's me.
Dropbox
So-
is constantly troublesome.
We're going to give you a couple of options so that you can look at this electronically and make comments in real time, because I think that's probably going to be better for you. I think for the first 3 articles, I've got most of your comments. There was nothing major, nothing huge. A lot of it was negligible, easy to deal with. This is going to be obviously a complicated issue, and I want to give you the tools to be successful, and I want you to be comfortable being able to offer a comment. There's no such thing as a bad comment. It's just a comment not made, so I don't have the opportunity to address it. That's the only bad comment there is.
I think the good thing about that is you can read something and say, I don't understand what they're talking about. Then you can call Jim or me and we can explain it to you. We can go to the same page you're looking at and explain it to you. So that's the key that I particularly wanted.
Now, I will say this, I went to town on your existing airport standards. All new. You really don't have anything to, you just haven't thought about it. And that's not a critique of the town, it's just reality. You all haven't had the need to worry about it. Well, that's why you hired me. And that's why you let me kind of put things on paper for you to evaluate. So you will see some new airport standards. Any other comments or questions? I think you all have at least a semi-comfort level. You want to see what the table is going to look like with the elimination of the special uses, and you want to see how I'm going to handle those criteria, which I understand. So we'll get that to you as quickly as we can. I'm also going to probably release Article 6. Article 6 is your general development standards, parking, signage, lighting, etc. We need to talk about how we're going to handle subdivisions. I will also release floodplain to you, but here's what I'm going to remind you. I have to ensure that your floodplain ordinance meets FEMA rules. So there's not a lot of wiggle room. If FEMA tells me one section has to say thou shalt not do something, then that's how it needs to read. So I'm not saying I don't want you to review it and ask questions or offer comment, but I do need to be fair to you and tell you with floodplain regulations, I'm going to have very limited opportunity to make tweaks. Because I'm not gonna have FEMA come here 6 months after I'm gone and say, oh, your ordinance doesn't meet our minimum model, so we're gonna do this to you. I can't do that.
So I guess I already know the answer to this question, but just to be sure, anything that we change, from this point forward, wherever, from that date, whatever date there was, anything prior to that would be grandfathered in and nothing would be required to change. Is that correct?
That's correct. But I really don't see us making a lot of modifications to a lot of your standards that would create a non-conformity.
Yeah.
And also remember that I'm very limited in the types of non-conformities I can create because of how state law currently reads. But you are still correct. Your logic is sound that if we made it a modification and a use doesn't meet those standards, then yes, it would legally by the ordinance be classified as a non-conforming use and allowed to continue until XYZ happens. I just have the added benefit of banging my head on the wall to try to keep you out of court with the state General Assembly as it currently reads in 160 days. Maybe I'll make that Jim's problem.
Yes.
Like, what about if somebody wanted to put a tank farm out here?
A what?
Tank farm, yeah, fuel oil, like, or all storage of gasoline, hazardous material.
I actually have,
I mean, that would,
Well, propane.
propane or,
That's not a woman kind of business.
A tank farm would be,
I'll let y'all.
it's a stretch, it'd be like an airport, where would you put it? And the regulations you would have to have, not only ours, but the federal government, and all that, it just wouldn't be practical.
so right
roads
now,
wouldn't support it.
I think the one out at Paul Creek wouldn't be approved now if you,
Right.
That's what I'm
That's what I meant
saying.
by the grandfather.
That's what,
but you
That's
know
what
that
I was thinking.
operation for 30 years too.
right now I
50 years,
have
whatever.
petroleum product and storage. I don't have it checked. I already know I've got to find a checkbox somewhere because I know you have one. But right now I don't allow it. To Ed's point, if you have one, then obviously I have an obligation requirement to put it in there. But, and this is a legal question, it's conceivable that you can say, this land use, petroleum, product storage and distribution, has to follow these standards if it was approved before, let's say, June the 30th of 2026.
Right.
After June 30th of 2026, this is the standard.
Right.
So you will have effectively a dual ordinance. And I hate that for you,
I know.
but
That's hard.
it's the only way I can address the nonconformity. But what it also then says is, if the existing petroleum storage facility only meets a 30-foot setback, and this is just an example, and you want a 500-foot setback, just to give you a figure off the top of my head, anything after that has to meet 500-foot setback.
Mhm. And if they
That's where
leave,
you go with one.
and then they come back,
Well,
they're not grandfathered.
if they cease operation,
Yes.
or if they change the use from a petroleum operation to, let's say, a retail store, just to go out the example, to go back to petroleum, even though it used to be used for that, they have to go through the permit process, comply with the standards that exist today. You lost your vesting.
Yes.
Okay. The only other thing I'm gonna say, because I don't want you to be surprised, and I'm sorry in advance for what I'm gonna tell you. Adult establishments.
Gentlemen's Club.
Yes.
I'm gonna leave those.
Remember that state law says they are effectively an allowed land use. You can regulate the living daylights out of them, but they're an allowed land use. So no special use, no limited use. It's allowed. It's going to be allowed in industrial districts as you currently have it, and it's going to have to meet setbacks from sensitive uses. Yeah. But I have one community I'm working with now that has basically told me, no, you're not changing it. We're going to go to court.
Yeah.
Okay, you need to write a letter absolving me personally
Of that.
from liability, because I'm telling you what the statute says. Their attorney is telling them the same thing I'm telling them. And their attorney is now saying, you can't write that letter. Well, Mr. Harvey's not moving forward until he gets the letter. Why? Because I'm not going to be the one testifying before a judge of competent jurisdiction. Well, Mr. Harvey, you know what the statute says. I don't like throwing my clients under the bus, but by the same token,
Well, we don't,
one bus.
unfortunately, yes.
we don't want that. We don't want those full of stores that you see off the interstate adult entertainment stores either. So.
Right.
The massage parlor?
Yeah, or, well, the adult toys and stuff that you see when you're going down the interstate. So.
But there's some that.
Rest areas?
Massage thing, and then it's like a.
Rest areas? Are you talking about rest areas?
I
Ah.
don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, I'm not sorry I brought it up. I
We don't want it.
I don't want.
Ed is
you to
educated
surprise
now.
When you see the change, that's the only reason I brought it up. So.
Why did we go to?
Right, Bill?
They're not the gas station.
What about tattoo?
Not the trucker stop.
Okay, if you get tattoos now. I thank you all very much. I appreciate your understanding. I appreciate your candor. And I
What
appreciate,
do tattoo shops fall under?
they're actually listed as a service land use and they're listed independently. You already have that.
Good business.
And here in Fairview?
Good business, yeah.
It could come to.
Yeah, you actually have it listed in your existing table of uses.
Just take it out and leave it.
Well,
I wish I could.
y'all have to remember, this is the reason we don't have a food line.
What is the reason?
Although many people would like to have one here, the community can't support it. So unless things change with an adult store or something, I don't know. Here, it wouldn't work. You got to take that into consideration because everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows who's going and who's not.
That's what I'm
You
thinking,
can't
that
back-
outside.
Well, you don't have the back ends. They put covers over them.
Your physical requirements sometimes dictate what you can have and what you can't have.
Go during lunch break.
There's plenty of neighbors in counties.
All right, I'm just gonna be quiet. And move on to the next thing on the agenda.
I appreciate you all, and went a little longer than I wanted, but it was a good discussion, and I appreciate everybody's candor.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate your effort. We're sorry we abused you.
No,
No.
you didn't abuse me any more than anybody else.
All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the meeting minutes of December the 16th. So if you guys had a chance to read over the meeting minutes, hopefully. If not, just go ahead and take a couple minutes to go through those. And how did that, when you went to the town council, did they approve or disapprove the 6 residential lots?
They approved it.
Okay, thank you. I was curious.
That's a good, I ought to tell you after each council meeting, what y'all talked about and what they've approved. I ought to tell you that in a memo or something to you, and I will start doing that.
Okay, thank you.
So Jim will start.
Jim will start doing that.
Yeah, March 1st.
I hear a lot of excitement about that. I'll be around a couple more
Yeah,
months.
they're just happy for you, buddy. Don't take it personally.
Is that $300,000?
But there's a lot of people that done it, glad to see me go. Okay.
Do have a motion about the meeting minutes on December the 16th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, all that agree, say aye. Aye. Okay, very good, thank you. So public comments is our next item, and Martin, you're the only one here.
Any comments?
I have several comments, but nothing about anything that Fairview is concerned with, so I'll shut up.
So, with that, if nobody objects, I will call the meeting to adjourn. Thank you, I appreciate it.
All right.
And